The case of Christopher Todd arises, a young man who was supposedly cremated in the United States and reappeared as a sculpture in a Las Vegas casino. A mother claims that her son was, taken away and that his body is being displayed at the Human Body Museum in Las Vegas. And this is one of the scariest and at the same time most bizarre cases I've ever told you about here on the channel. Well, we know very well that every day hundreds of people disappear around the world. But not like Christopher Todd. According to his mother, he was deliberately taken to be used as a decoration piece in a museum in Las Vegas. And seriously, folks, the number of people who go missing in the United States is absurd. So honestly, I don't doubt anything anymore. So sit your butt down on the couch, the chair, the bed, wherever you want, wherever you can, wherever you are, and get ready, because I'm going to tell you all the details of this macabre story. Our story begins in one of the most visited casinos in Las Vegas, the Bayless, at an exhibition that caught everyone's attention for a reason no one expected. The Real Bodies, the exhibition, displays dissected human bodies in artistic poses. And it gained an unexpected protagonist, a young man known as the Thinker. So, what seemed to be just another anatomical structure among so many was actually hiding a very disturbing secret. At least that's what Kim Eric Smith, the mother of Christopher Todd Eric, claims. According to her, that statue was actually her son's real body, who was declared dead in 2012. It's been over 10 years, the most frightening part. This son was never actually cremated, as stated in the official report. She recognized him immediately. The jaw, the shape of the eyes, the scar on the right side of the chest, where, according to her, Christopher had removed a tattoo. The shaved hair, the shape of the nose, that wasn't a wax figure. That was her son who, was gone, skinned and displayed to the world like a morbid piece of art. But after all, what is this story? And most importantly, who is Christopher Todd? Christopher was born in 1989 in Texas, and he was the typical ordinary guy, described as introverted, sensitive, and, according to his own mother, strangely perceptive. At the age of 23, he supposedly passed away on April 10, 2012, the cause of death, according to the authorities, suicide by cyanide. A tragic and sudden end, but the investigators closed the case without many questions. But his mother, Kim, never accepted that version. On the death certificate, there is the signature of Christopher's father, who appears as the person responsible for the funeral arrangements. A few months later, Kim started to doubt this story, requested reports, and searched for certificates. She tried to obtain the records from the funeral home in charge, but the documents were confusing and the information was inconsistent. The funeral home was reportedly closed months after Christopher's mother became suspicious, and the traces disappeared one by one. The strangest thing about all this is that there was no cremation certificate in the state records. And in 2023, more than a decade later, Kim, his mother, traveled to Las Vegas and happened to walk into an exhibit called Real Bodies. This exhibition featured dozens of human bodies in theatrical poses, like runners frozen in time, skinless musicians playing instruments that make no sound, dissected ballerinas spinning in silence. And I've been to that exhibition before, but I went to the one in Amsterdam. And although this exhibition is poetic, it's strange because they are real bodies. But when she walked in, she came face to face with one of the sculptures in the exhibition. And right there, at that moment, she was sure that was her son. She soon after posted on social media a comparison between an old photo of Christopher and the image of the sculpture, the Thinker. And the resemblance was bizarre and scary, not just because of the features, but also the anatomical details, the marks, the shape of the ear, the shape of the jaw. And in just a few days, the video went viral, theories and supporters emerged, and of course, the first signs of censorship appeared. His mother's posts started being taken down, and searches for the name Christopher Todd on Google began to show unrelated results. It was as if someone was scrubbing the internet clean. His mother created a petition on Change.org demanding a DNA test on the sculpture from the exhibition. It was a simple request that the model's genetic material be collected there and compared with his family's material. And what was the exhibition's response? Well, complete silence. There was no official statement, no declaration, and Christopher's mother was left completely without an answer. The Real Bodies exhibition is part of a sinister empire, which is the death spectacle industry. Companies like Imagine Exhibitions and Premier Exhibition have made millions from plastinated bodies, preserved in artistic poses for educational purposes, as they themselves claim. But what few people know is where these bodies actually come from. Over the years, several reports have indicated that many of the cadavers displayed in these museums were not donated voluntarily. In fact, some of them may have come from Chinese prisons, psychiatric hospitals, and even private morgues. And now, in the midst of this story comes the case of Christopher Todd, a young man who was supposedly cremated in the United States and reappeared as a sculpture in a Las Vegas casino. So could he have been the victim of a silent body trafficking operation? And more, who signed the release of the body, because his mother was never notified? So how was the death by cyanide treated with such neglect? And most importantly, why after all this time would the corpse be intact, in another city, in an exhibition, being treated as a piece of art? Well, the darkest piece in this puzzle is within Christopher's family because, according to Kim, Christopher's father was responsible for the body in 2012. And he claimed that his son had been cremated and handed a sealed urn to the rest of the family. But the funeral home where the body was supposed to have been taken disappeared a few years later, amid reports of irregularities. Kim also investigated her ex-husband's connections with medical companies. And according to her, he had already had contact with tissue banks and laboratories that work with the preservation of human organs. So, could this be a work of chance, just a simple coincidence? Or could this be part of a shady deal? The most serious part of all this is that the independent tests requested by Kim revealed there was cyanide at lethal levels in Christopher's blood. Yes. And this was never investigated by the police. Quite the opposite. The case was simply filed away as one of those where the person takes their own life. But Christopher had no history of depression and no note was left. So he was a technically healthy young man, but why didn't the police investigate this poisoning? Who had access to the cyanide? And why did the report only come out after all of this had happened? And, most importantly, only after the mother's pressure? Well, this whole story, as you know very well, points to a cover-up, and maybe even a voluntary handing over of a body in the name of some bizarre profit. In these exhibitions, like the Real Bodies one, the bodies are much more than just art. They are a modern form of sacrifice. So imagine yourself walking among skinless corpses displayed like pieces in a macabre theater. There are children photographing bones, adults observing stained lungs, and pregnant women staring at plastinated fetuses in display cases. All of this packaged as science, packaged as culture. But there are those who see in all of this, everything I'm telling you, something even deeper, a kind of modern cult of flesh, a disguised ritual where death is not mourned, but rather celebrated. The case of Christopher, if it were confirmed, would be the perfect symbol of a sick system. A man taken from life, packaged, preserved, artistically positioned, and turned into profit. And, of course, there are things much deeper and more disturbing. The companies behind these exhibitions operate globally, with headquarters in countries that have lax laws regarding cadavers. They acquire bodies with no public record from closed clinics, from hospitals that don't issue invoices, from prisons. So Christopher's case wouldn't be the only one. He would be just one among many. They are invisible victims of a market that turns death into a spectacle. Have you ever thought how bizarre that is, guys? You go to an art exhibition and suddenly come face to face with the body of a loved one, dissected, all twisted. Yeah, this is the strange world we live in. And even though what I just told you is a true story, it's just another day here on this lovely little planet.